All right, America, let's talk about the Constitution. This isn't just any old document, it's the backbone of our nation. It's old, it's kind of confusing, and some parts haven't aged well. But it's also a living document that has evolved over time. But it's the rule book for the whole country, and believe it or not, it's important. It lays down the law and keeps things in check. Think of it like America's instruction manual. Just like any good manual, it tells us how things are supposed to work. It tells us how the government works, what rights we have, and how we can change things if they aren't working out. It's a guide for democracy. It's been around since 1788, which in internet years is basically forever. Imagine how much the world has changed since then. The Constitution is full of big words and complicated ideas, but don't worry, tonight we're breaking it down. We'll make it simple and easy to understand. We'll be talking about white papers, amendments, and why the Founding Fathers couldn't agree on how to wear a wig. Just kidding, sort of. But seriously, we'll cover the essentials. The point is, this document affects all of us, so buckle up, because things are about to get constitutional. Whether you realize it or not, the Constitution shapes our daily lives. Now you might be thinking, John, what the hell is a white paper? Don't worry, I get it. It's a bit confusing at first, it's not exactly the most exciting term. Basically, a white paper is a document that tries to persuade people about something important. It lays out a problem and proposes a solution to that problem. Sound familiar? That's because the Constitution was basically the original white paper. Back in the 1780s, the Founding Fathers were facing a major problem. America was a hot mess. They needed a system of government that worked, and they needed to convince everyone to get on board with it. Enter the Constitution. It was their big pitch, their grand plan, their, dare I say, white paper. Let's meet the brains behind this whole operation, shall we? These were the visionaries who laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most influential documents in history. We've got George Washington, the reluctant leader who presided over the whole thing. He was a man of few words but immense presence, guiding the convention with a steady hand. Thomas Jefferson, the wordsmith who penned the Declaration of Independence. His eloquence and vision for a new nation were instrumental in shaping the country's ideals. And James Madison, the short king who basically wrote the Constitution in his basement. His meticulous notes and deep understanding of governance were crucial in drafting the document. These guys, along with a bunch of other dudes in powdered wigs, spent months arguing, debating, and compromising to create a document that has somehow managed to survive for centuries. Their debates were intense, often heated, but always driven by a shared vision of a better future. Now, were these guys perfect? Hell no. They were flawed individuals just like anyone else. They had their biases, their blind spots, and their mistakes. They owned slaves, they didn't trust women with the vote, and their idea of a good time involved a lot of quill pens and breeches. Their world was very different from ours, and their values reflected that. But they also created a framework for a government that, while flawed, has allowed for incredible progress over time. This framework has been the foundation upon which countless reforms and advancements have been built. That's the thing about the Constitution, folks. It's a living document. It's designed to be amended, interpreted, and reinterpreted as society evolves. It's constantly evolving, just like our understanding of freedom and equality. Each generation has the opportunity to shape it, to make it more inclusive, more just, and more reflective of our highest ideals. Section 4, Amendments, Updates to the Manual. Speaking of evolving, let's talk about amendments. Remember how I said the Constitution was like an instruction manual? Well, sometimes you need to update the manual, right? That's what amendments are, changes or additions to the Constitution. The first 10 amendments are known as the Bill of Rights, and they guarantee some pretty important stuff like freedom of speech, religion, and the right to bear arms. But the amendments didn't stop there. Over the years, we've added 17 more, abolishing slavery, granting women the right to vote, and lowering the voting age to 18. Each amendment tells a story about how our country has changed and grown. It's a reminder that the Constitution is not set in stone, it's a work in progress. Section 5. Shaping a Nation, from segregation to suffrage. Now let's get real for a second. The Constitution hasn't always lived up to its ideals. For much of our history, its promises of equality and justice were denied to countless Americans based on their race, gender, and sexual orientation. We've had to fight tooth and nail to make those promises a reality. The Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, the fight for LGBTQ+ equality, all of these struggles were ultimately about holding America accountable to the principles enshrined in its founding document. And while we still have a long way to go, the Constitution has provided a framework for progress, a roadmap for a more just and equitable society. Section 6. The Constitution's reach beyond American borders. Here's a fun fact. The U.S. Constitution isn't just some dusty old document gathering cobwebs in a vault in Washington, D.C. It's a living, breathing testament to the ideals of democracy and governance. It's actually had a pretty big impact on the rest of the world. Nations far and wide have looked to it as a blueprint for their own constitutions and legal frameworks. Think about it. Democracy, human rights, the separation of powers. These ideas, while not unique to America, were given powerful expression in the Constitution. Its influence can be seen in the way countries conduct elections, protect individual freedoms, and structure their governments. And they've inspired countless movements and revolutions around the globe. From the streets of Paris to the squares of Eastern Europe, the echoes of the U.S. Constitution can be heard. From the French Revolution to the fall of the Berlin Wall, people fighting for freedom and self-determination have looked to the U.S. Constitution as a model, a source of hope and inspiration. Its principles have transcended borders and eras, becoming a universal symbol of the quest for liberty. It's a reminder that ideas have power, and that even a document written centuries ago can still resonate with people across time and cultures. The U.S. Constitution continues to be a beacon, guiding nations and individuals towards a more just and equitable world. Section 7, a living document, the Constitution's enduring legacy. So, there you have it, the U.S. Constitution, a 200-year-old document that's still going strong. It's been debated, amended, and reinterpreted countless times, and it continues to shape our lives today. It's a testament to the power of ideas, the importance of compromise, and the enduring belief in a more perfect union. Of course, no document is perfect, and the Constitution is no exception, but it's a living document capable of evolving with the times, and as long as we continue to engage with it, to debate its meaning and fight for its ideals, it will continue to serve as a beacon of hope and a roadmap for a more just and equitable future. And that's something worth fighting for, folks.